So I hope you enjoyed that creamy b-roll that me and my little bro took for you guys. Now by the time you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure you know what we're going to talk about. First things first, if you're following me on Facebook and on Instagram, you'll know that I recently did a night street photography session and it kinda got a little bit of attention from the public. I mean, not that famous, but over on Facebook as of now, it currently got 150 shares and over 490 likes with 37 comments. I mean, it's not that big, but it was able to capture the attention of Zipcode5000. Basically, Zipcode5000 is an account on Instagram and on Facebook in which they feature great photos and when it comes to advertising ILOILO as a whole. So they hit me up, they said, Stans, we need your help. How about you do a how to do a night photography tutorial? Of course I said yes. So they'll also share my video over at their page. And before we start the tutorial, make sure you guys check Zipcode5000 on Facebook and on Instagram. And if ever you're here and if you're already currently living here in ILOILO, if you want your pictures to be featured, make sure to leave a hashtag Zipcode5000 or tag them. Now, let's go down to the tutorial. Let's start with the technicalities. When it comes to night photography, you can use your phone or your DSLR camera. In this type of tutorial, we're only going to be focusing on how to use your DSLR cameras. So first part on the technicality is on what lens should you use. So basically, you can use your kit lens, the one that comes with your camera that actually works. And for this video, when I actually did the session in the city, I actually used the kit lens from the 5D Mark II, which is the 24 to 135. It's a kit lens. It came with the 5D Mark II, and I also used a 50mm, a prime lens, when I took some photos over there. Again, when it comes to lenses, I recommend you use prime lenses. So what are prime lenses? Basically, they are lenses that they don't zoom in and zoom out. They just have a specific focal length already, from 24 all the way to 200. So when it comes to street photography, I recommend using 24, 35, 40, 50, and all the way up to 85. But usually 50 below until 24. Those are usually the lenses that work great when it comes to street photography because it just makes it easier. If you have a prime lens, you don't have to think about, should I focus in, should I focus out? You just have to like stick with what you have already and just adjust your length to your subject when it comes to shooting. It just makes the shoot easier. Now, when it comes to prime lenses or kit lenses, the reason why I recommend them is because they have a bigger opening when it comes to their aperture. For example, like my 50mm, it opens up to 1.8. Any lens that has an f3.5 below, that would be a great lens because it is more open and it welcomes more light in. That will work great for your night photography. Also for the camera, whether you're going to be using a full frame or an APS-C sensor or even a micro four thirds, I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter anymore what type of sensor you're using, whether it's full frame or APS-C, although you have to like present the story visually. But don't get too technical with all the sensors and stuff. So if you guys are like asking what sensor to use, basically anything, just use your camera. Just start shooting. Okay, for the settings, so I'm not saying that this is the night photography setup already, but this worked for me. You can basically just use this as a guideline. This doesn't necessarily mean this is the rule when it comes to night photography. I just use this because I found that using this type of shooting, I just, have a easier time when I'm doing night photography. Now, first of all, what should be your shutter speed? Technically, when it comes to like night photography, your minimum shutter speed should be your lens's focal length. So for example, if I'm going to be using the 50mm, I'm going to make sure that my shutter speed is at 1/50th. I shouldn't go below that. Like when I use the 24mm on the full frame 5D Mark II, I shot with 1/20th, 1/30th, number close to that. And then when I shot with a 50mm, I basically shot with 1/50th. Now, when your aperture, drop that number as you can. So go as low in the f-stop number when it comes to your aperture. So basically my 50mm can go 1.8, I'll go 1.8 so that we can maximize as much light at the sensor. If I have a 3.5, I'll go 3.5. Also, when you drop that f-stop number, you'll have that creamy, blurry background. So just a quick recap. depends on your focal length, that should be your shutter speed. So if you're using a 50mm, shoot at 1/50th. Take note, just make sure that you're not walking when you're taking a photo, or your subject is not walking a little bit faster, because I actually have one of the shots there where I took a photo of a security guard passing down the stairs. Despite walking down slow, the 1/50th was already sensitive to that type of motion. Like I said, just be aware of that motion blur, because going below 1/100 can already produce some motion blur. And then as long as you got that settings right, lowest aperture, and then your shutter speed equal to your focal length, the eye is always going to just depend on your meter. If you're watching your meter, I recommend you either use evaluative metering or partial metering. You can just go to your settings or Google on how to change your metering for your camera. And then when it comes to also your autofocus, it depends on the situations. If I see a subject that's moving, I go to AI servo. On Nikon users, it's I think AF continuous. But if my subjects are on static mode, I just stick back to AI point. I think so, if I'm right. Oh my god, I've been using Canon for a while and I'm still not sure if it's AI focus. Point. Okay, widest. Also, this is like one of the most underrated things. Okay, this is night, it's considered night photography. Still, key here is having a light. One of the shots that we took is that we used my little brother's phone to lit him up while I'm taking a photo of him. So basically you need a key light, like this one, my key light, that's lighting me up and separating me from the background. You kind of need that too when you're doing night photography. Basically trying to simulate a backlit photo and then use your phone to lit your subject and then snap a photo of him. So make sure to use a key light. If you don't have a phone flashlight available or anything else that can be used as a key light, find spots in the city that has a strong ambient light and try to use that instead. Because the rules at night photography are different and it's kind of backwards than what you're used to doing on the daily basis. So that's why you just have to find more ways to absorb as much light as possible. So try to position your subject with a great lighting. Don't get him too backlit. Remember that lighting on night photography is very, very, very important. So just practice your composition and practice on trying to separate your subject using lights by making sure that there are lights behind him and then you have a key light to light him up at the same time. One of the great things that I do like when it comes to taking night photography is to check the weather app if it's going to rain. Why? Reflections. Reflections are they're so underrated. I check the weather app and make sure if it's going to rain, and sometimes I shoot in the rain because it helps out. When you're doing night photography, lights are kind of limited, but if you have reflections, they kind of multiply every light that's available twice. That actually helps, and it's also a new perspective when it comes to shooting. You can actually shoot reflections in the water, reflections from the glass of the cars. Kind of just makes your composition way more interesting and not so boring. Just a quick recap on the lighting stuff. Make sure you have your key light, which is your main source of your light, which is this one that I'm using right now that's lighting my face. You also need your practical lights or your background lights, which is kind of like what I have here right now. That's basically like making sure I'm separated to the background, and also dropping your aperture so that you have a very, very blurry, like, I don't know if this can focus it. Like, as you can see now, my hand is pretty focused and I'm really blurry in the background. So you really kind of need that effect when you're trying to shoot night photography, because as much as possible you want to also declutter the shot, because when it comes to night photography there are a lot of lights coming from cars, from street light, and sometimes they can also be distracting too. So that's why you need to open your aperture and make sure you got that clean bokeh, and at the same time, because you're opening the aperture up, you got more light in screen. So basically that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. It's not a quick one, kind of a lot to talk about, but I hope you do appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you want me to cover a different type of shoot again, leave a comment below. And also Mitchell Artworks, go to Facebook, hit Mitchell Artworks up. If I get 2,000 likes on my Facebook page, I am going to give away a free preset. That's for you guys, specifically the preset that I use on the night photography, and also leave a little tutorial on that one. So if you guys are interested in a free preset, make sure to leave a like on the Mitchell Artworks page. And yeah, that's it. I'm done for today. Have a great one. Keep on shooting. Till next time.